Good evening, Dr. Omar.
Good evening.
Thank you very much for coming through. Just what you made of the sentences.
Well, firstly, we want to say that we would commend and we salute the judiciary for taking the course of action it has taken. And I think it's important to know that the function of the law is to convert injustice into justice. So whilst we feel justice has been served to a certain degree, we still feel pained and hurt and feel really torn, about the loss of this child. As we know that the loss of one child is the loss of many children. And this is still an unforgivable act, something that we cannot justify, we cannot condone. And I think it's important to understand that when assault is committed against, when an adult is beaten, we say it's assault. When an animal is beaten, we say it's cruelty. But when a child is killed, murdered, a powerless, vulnerable child who cannot stop it, what do we call that? That's something indescribable. It is something that is totally unacceptable. It's the most horrific and heinous of crimes. So we still feel we feel very sad at the loss of this child, but we want to say that we are pleased to see that the judiciary, the courts, are taking this more seriously, and this would certainly send a serious message to parents, to people out there.
Just looking at this case and others we have seen recently, of course, on the back of calls that people like you and other activists have been making for stiffer sentences, do you feel that the tide is turning or has turned and the judiciary is really, increasingly coming down hard on the perpetrators of these sorts of crimes?
So there have been a more increased incidence of conviction rates. I'm not saying that we're there yet. There is a paradigm shift, and I think there have been some cases where we have not been satisfied, and we would appeal to the judiciary to continue remaining harsh. I think that was something that was mandated by our President Cyril Ramaphosa with the GBV summit, which he signed last week at the Booysens Court, the declaration of the summit, and us as civil society organizations were part of that. So we do believe that the judiciary is going to take this up more seriously.
Of course, the courts always point out or complain that, they're really at the receiving end of what goes, into these cases long before they actually have to handle it. And we're talking about the role of police.
Indeed.
We're talking about the role of communities and so on. Is the tide turning there? In other words, are we seeing more reportage of these sorts of incidents? Are we seeing communities really, not taking kindly to parents who do the sort of things that baby Daniel's parents, did?
So once again, the declaration of that summit made it very clear that, it needs to be taken seriously, and that both police officers, the NPA officers, your prosecutors should be brought to book if there's any irregularities or failure to take the case to its conclusion. So I do believe that people are going to be more circumspect about how they deal with it, and that be careful, specifically the law enforcement agencies, how they receive victims and their families, and not to turn them away or subject them to secondary victimization and trauma. There is hope, and we continue to, motivate people out there to take action and ensure that people are treated and given the kind of treatment they deserve.
And of course, we can't get tired of putting out there, to South Africans broadly, the message that says consider the damage, some of it permanent, that gets done to these children, many of whom do survive what baby Daniel didn't survive, but will end up being scarred for the rest of their lives.
Indeed, and I think we are failing a very important group of people here. The three other children, the half-siblings of baby Daniel, losing the mother, and living with the emotional scars, the psychological scars of what has happened, growing up knowing that, I think we need to also realize that they are also indirect victims of this abuse.
Because, I mean, organizations like yours have been complaining about the little resources you have at your disposal, the less than ideal help you get from, like, the South African public. What can people still do to make sure that those who survive, like baby Daniel's siblings and, others like them, do get the help they need to, at the very least, contain the damage that gets inflicted?
I like what you say, to contain the damage. It's critical, it's essential. It's never too late to provide the kind of support, assisting through that healing process, ensuring that children get the necessary counseling, therapeutic interventions, whatever they need to hold their hands through this process, physically, emotionally, and psychologically, because there's hope for every child. If they are given what they need, there's a strong potential for them to heal and bounce back, because children are very resilient. And we've worked with children that have gone through severe ordeals and trauma and have come out championing that. I cannot say that they've forgotten, but they've learned how to cope and manage their lives adequately, ensuring that they can continuously function.
And that's where we're going to leave at this evening. Thanks very much, as always, for coming through. Dr. Shaheeda Omar, who is the Clinical Director of the Teddy Bear Foundation for Abused Children.